Alright guys, that's Kremp again, so I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The bracket is officially set for Major 2 in Miami. Some big storylines coming at this one, especially the OpTic versus Miami rematch of what we saw that was quite dramatic way back at Major 1. Is there an easier side to this bracket? If there is, it probably belongs to the number 1 seed in OpTic Texas. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into today. Firstly, just got to conclude on what happened yesterday in the Halo tournament that was in Arlington, right? It was kind of like OpTic's Halo tournament. They beat FaZe twice. That's the World Championship team. That's very impressive indeed. But they lost to Space Station on a couple of occasions. There was an interesting map in this series. I don't really know why they play so many Slayers in these best of sevens, I'm not gonna lie. And also there was lots of talk on some cheese map set during the series, to be fair. But SSG deserved the win. Formal was obviously frustrated. But yeah, they got second place in the end. These were the results of the tournament. Space Station get the win, of course. That was OpTic's first tournament with Dead Zone on the team instead of aPeZy. And these were the results down the field, as pretty much you might expect. At least the top field, absolutely. Sentinels were top 16 in the end, as you guys can see right about here. We've got to talk about how that OpTic series concluded yesterday. This is a funny clip that was going around, actually. I don't know why. Well, people always roast teams when they laugh and then they lose, you know what I mean? It used to happen with Kenny for years on the Thieves, when he'd be having a good time and then they would lose and then he'd get roasted for it. And we see this the same with other teams as well, like here's HyDra having a good time. I'm pretty sure this is after map 2 or just at one point in the series, and then bang, they just lost the game 5 round 11. So, you know, tough result. I wonder what New York Subliners will think about whether they could have played a different map 5. Invasion maybe was an option, Rio was an option. They went down the Karachi route instead, which is OpTic's best search and destroy. And I think that's fair enough. You want to challenge them on their best map. They will arguably think that Subliners should have won that one. Obviously, it went round 11. I feel like, to be fair, OpTic should have won more convincingly than they did. Shotzzy as well, by the way, has this season a 2KD on Karachi Search. At least a 2KD on Karachi Search map 5. I think he's like 34 in 17 this year, Shotzzy, on that map mode combination, which is just absolutely ludicrous. And it's not too dissimilar on other maps as well. That might just be his Game 5 record actually on that map, which again is ridiculous. And it's the same story elsewhere. Shotzzy has a 1.68 in Game 5s this season. So you talk impact. I mean, it doesn't get much more impactful than that. So Subliners, of course, go down Game 5. And as we'll discuss here in a second, whether there was a possibility that if Subliners did go for a different map 5 search and destroy when they went for their vetoes, they might feel like they should have won that Game 5 and not get reverse swept. Had they have done, they might have had well, they would have done if they'd have won the series, a different first round game. And I genuinely think, looking at these matches in round 1, Subliners would have been better off had they won that series, right? I do think upset potential is there round 1. You look at the top teams, OpTic, Subliners, Toronto, FaZe. I don't know, I look at the matches and I feel like one of them is getting upset. It might not happen, maybe those 4 win, but I feel like there's a good possibility for some sort of upset round 1, and we'll discuss where that might potentially find itself in a couple of seconds. But of course, OpTic get the victory, Game 5, round 11. Ridiculous series and absolutely fantastic for those of us who want a competitive major, because it is almost impossible to call who's going to win the event based on the evidence of the last couple of weeks. Of course, Shotzzy himself said in the post-game interview their search and destroy improvements have played a massive part of their turnarounds, and a lot of that has been Karachi, but a lot of that has been Shotzzy, right? Just straight up, this guy's been an absolute monster. Now, historically, Shotzzy has been a phenomenal S&D player, especially online, but translating that to LAN has sometimes proved difficult, and I guess we'll see when we get to LAN how different that is. Then again, it's not like I expect OpTic to get significantly worse on LAN at all. Kenny is one of the players in the league that you'd expect to get significantly better from online to LAN, and we've seen that before, and we're probably going to see it again. So as Shotzzy says, GG's New York 1-3-2, team iced up once again. Crazy reverse rate, really. And obviously Dashy pretty much called game right by making the play that he did in that round 11 there. Yes, he probably heard one of those guys above him running around with the iron boots with no dead silence on. And to be fair, given those circumstances, it was an interesting play from Subliners to attempt that, but also the read from Dashy to make that play, I thought was very impressive in the first place. So yeah, always an insane series against those guys. Hopefully we get something like this back again when we get to LAN. Finishing the split 7-0. It was FaZe that was 7-0 in stage 1. They placed second at the major. OpTic are now 7-0 this stage. I mean, look, there's some terrible teams in this league right now. 1 in 6 teams such as the Gorillas. So maybe it makes sense that somebody is going to go 7-0. And obviously it happened this time. It was going to be either Subliners or OpTic. But on this occasion it was OpTic. And as Kenny says, I swear spawns on Rio are different in matches, right? There were some weird spawns happening there. Certainly over at the hard point on the lower street where the van is, that Pred got out of the hill for like half a second. And then that's seemed to cause one of OpTic's guys to spawn way out on the other side of the map. So a little bit strange. This honestly has been a point that pros have made in the past, that they feel like the spawns are different in matches than they are in scrims, just based on the servers and other factors. I don't know if this is true, if this is just like them CTE or whatever they call it, or, you know, the pro players making things up in their mind or just seeing things, but they have talked about this in the past, that some things feel different to play when they play in matches and when they actually play in practice, and certainly when they get to LAN as well. That's been a talking point, that makes the spawns different, which it really shouldn't, but honestly, you can't rule anything out at this point, the way these games are made lately. So OpTic have gone undefeated now in 4 different qualifier stages. Only FaZe have done that in the CDL history, so they're now 22-3 as well for their last 25 qualifier games. So it's a pretty ridiculous stat, actually. Of course, they closed out last year with like the back-to-back 5-0, wasn't it? They were dominant online towards the end of last season. Couldn't really translate that, of course, though, when they got to LAN. But to be fair, back then, Hook is definitely a player that I feel like thrives more online than LAN. This current iteration, I think, will be better on LAN than online, or at least should be pretty similar. So 7-0, 22-3 in their last 25. Are they the favourites for Major 2? Well, they're the number 1 seed. Does that make them the favourite? I'm not quite sure. I personally had FaZe going into this tournament as the favourite, and I still have no idea who I would actually predict to win right now. But after FaZe's result yesterday, I'm now thinking, well, can I really pick FaZe as the tournament favourites with that defeat to the Los Angeles Gunners? I genuinely don't even know where to go. Like, OpTic genuinely might be, but I do still feel like at the major, teams are going to play them on Invasion Search and on, you know, maybe try and get High Rise in there if OpTic don't ban it, but they probably will. I just don't think OpTic are going to get away with playing Karachi every single series now, and I don't know what that means for their actual placements when they don't get to play Karachi Game 5 every time, which I don't think they will come the major based on Shotzzy's performance there. But have a look at this. Only 2 times in the last several years has the team that went undefeated actually gone on to win the event. It was FaZe both times in Cold War. Since then, every team that's gone 5-0, FaZe, OpTic, Rocker, OpTic, FaZe, and OpTic again, they've never won the event. So maybe it's going to be different this time, but this is what the bracket looks like. So here we go. Your winners round 1 games, your losers round 1 games, and let's just start at the top. OpTic versus Miami, you know, dread it, run from it, it arrives all the same. OpTic versus Florida, as back in the day, now it's OpTic Miami. We saw them play online during Stage 1 qualifiers. Miami beat them, Vikul threw up the 3-0, then OpTic slammed them 3-0 back on LAN, and Pred threw up the 3 himself. So that's an entertaining series. Honestly, I think Miami have been looking pretty scary, right? I mean, they turned it around. They won their last couple of series in a row, looking okay. I still feel like when you get to LAN, it shouldn't be too difficult for OpTic to win this one, but the comparison that I was looking for really was between OpTic and the Subliners. Because if New York won yesterday, they would have this Heretics game, and if OpTic lost yesterday, they would have the Breach game. That's not what actually happened, though. And to be fair, if FaZe didn't lose to the Gorillas, then they wouldn't have ended up the 3rd seed. They'd have been the 2nd seed, and then it would have actually been a bit different again. But because they did lose to Gorillas, this is also pretty funny. Gorillas, despite having nothing to gain by winning that series apart from 10 CDL points, they have put Thieves against FaZe, which is just hilarious, isn't it? Like, even when Thieves manage to beat Gorillas, they're always getting screwed over by the Gorillas, right? Because, and maybe it doesn't matter because Thieves would have played a good team anyway, but specifically that FaZe-Thieves matchup is just disastrous for Thieves. Whatever reason, historically speaking, when Thieves have a poorer team from a skill perspective than FaZe do, FaZe just slam them. And after FaZe have lost a series recently, I don't see any other result here than FaZe just come out and handle business comfortably in this series. So I feel bad for Thieves, really, because I feel like they've got their hardest possible round 1 game because Gorillas beat FaZe. And then if Thieves lose to FaZe, they then play Gorillas. That's how this bracket works. The loser of this top series plays this series, and we'll see how that might filter out here in a second. But I feel like OpTic should be, you know, 80-85% favourites to win this one, but it's interesting to me because I feel like the Subliners, just that matchup against Miami, favours Subliners more than it does OpTic. I feel like if Subliners are against Heretics, I'd pick New York to win, like, for sure, and if OpTic are against Boston, I'd pick them to win, like, for sure. But Boston, New York, I think is actually kind of interesting because you've got the Priestahh versus his former team situation. You've got Subliners, first of all, going to LAN, where they got slammed out by Rocker and Ravens last time, top 12. Now they play Boston, a team that tends to play up to their competition. They're going to play better on LAN. if Boston Search and Destroy can be good, this is a potential series that you can look for as an upset. I still don't think I'd predict it to happen, but I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. And if Subliners were to lose this one, just theoretically, I think they might look back at that OpTic series yesterday and think, damn, maybe we could have picked a different map 5 rather than giving OpTic their best one. So assuming that OpTic beat Miami and Subliners beat Boston and FaZe beat Thieves, we then have Ultra versus Legion, right? These are the 4th and 5th seeds respectively. Just sensational that Legion are actually up here. We'll see the overall season standings here in a second as well. This could be interesting. Ultra played Legion online a couple of weeks ago. Legion slammed them 6-0 in the Search and Destroy. They lost a very close respawn game 4 in the Rio. Could have gone game 5. We know that Ultra Search and Destroy right now has fallen off somewhat. So this could be interesting. On a series to series basis, it's tough to pick against the favourites in these series, but I feel like one of these series is going to go the other way. And I don't think it's going to be FaZe Thieves, and I don't really think it's going to be OpTic Miami. I think it's going to be one of the other ones if there is going to be an upset where we are going to see it. But also, let's say you are Legion. You lose to Ultra, you play Surge, and then if you beat Surge, you play the winner of Miami and Ravens. So Legion have a great chance here, even if they do lose to Toronto, to lock up a top 6 placing, right? Because that's just the way the bracket works out. With OpTic as the number 1 seed, they play the worst, theoretically, seeded team from the winner's side, and then they play 4th or 5th. So if there is an easier side of the bracket, it's probably OpTic side, especially because they did beat Ultra online not long ago. So I think if OpTic had to find themselves anywhere, I'd probably say that the top side is the more favourable side of the bracket. Legion are going to be pretty decent, I think, and I would expect them to make a bit of a loser's run if and when they go down. But yeah, just sets up for an absolutely great tournament. I mean, it's going to be a generational winners round 2 if it really is OpTic, Toronto, Subliners, FaZe in winners round 2. Like, this is the type of stuff you dream about as a COD fan, and it's possibly going to happen unless there's a round 1 upset. And even if there is, it's going to make things very interesting because the team that loses is more than likely making a run because the teams down here are not good lately. And yeah, I don't expect that to change anytime soon. These are the overall season standings. It is very clear. We have a top 4 and we have the rest. Now, New York, because they got top 12 of the major, they didn't get many points, so their points are all online, but it's crazy to me that every single team that isn't a top 4 team has a negative record, and largely by quite some way. Ravens now, by the way, are officially your bottom team in the league. They need a big major. They're going to play, what, Miami, probably round 1, so I guess that is winnable, but, I mean, it's an absolute must-win at that point, or it's a complete blow-it-up situation. Vegas, though, man, what a turnaround from these guys. They're at 75 points right now. They're still 10 off the Minnesota Rocker, because Rocker had a good major 1, but theoretically, if you look at all of these teams, which roster am I expecting to place the highest out of all of these teams down here? I've got Legion, you know, probably getting a top 6, right? I mean, you look at the brackets, you look at the way Legion are playing, they will play Surge, they should beat that one for sure, and they'll play either Miami or Ravens, theoretically. Okay, unless there's an upset that happens here and Legion have to play OpTic or something, that'd be unlucky. But theoretically, Vegas are looking at a top 6 finish here, and that is potentially looking at moving themselves up to the best of the rest by the end of the major, and maybe they can go one step further and really challenge the top teams, right? Like, I don't think Ultra want to overlook them completely, but my feeling is always that when you get to these LAN events, the team with the more experience and tenure and championships under their belt just tends to be favoured a bit more, right? Like, I think Legion have a better chance against Ultra online than they do when they get to LAN, but who knows, maybe Geo is an absolute LAN demon and he'll show up at his first time of asking, right? Because, you know, they're at 75 now, right? It's honestly such a crazy story. And they are, what? I mean, they've won 17 out of their last 27 maps. They are looking, what, 5-2 in the qualifiers so far? Yes, they had an easier run of qualifiers. Nobody's denying that, but the storyline still writes itself. So these are the timings for Major 1 in a couple of days' time. I don't really think you could have written the script any better going into this one in terms of what the matches are, why they're interesting. Of course, like, you know, Priestahh versus former team you mentioned, but also just New York versus Boston in general. OpTic Miami, it's like, it's so perfect, these round 1 games, and what it might mean for round 2 as well, that it's tough to even believe it. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.